Hello, Tech Pros, episode 119.
Travel should really change you, and it should enrich you as a person. It should make you understand the world around us.
Welcome to the podcast where I chat with professionals who are getting the job done using technology 7 days a week. Each week, we start with Motivation Monday. Tuesday is about productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and Sunday, being unplugged. All right, let's get started. Hello, Tech Pros. This is Chad Bostic, and I'm excited to introduce our featured guest today, Stephen Shalowitz. Happy Sunday, Stephen.
Happy Sunday to you, Chad. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's been an amazing week last week. It's an awesome weekend, and today is my day. Other than publishing this episode, which seems like work to some people, but it's really fun for me. Publishing this episode, other than that, I am unplugged and unwound and just relaxing with my family. How about yourself?
Well, Sundays I actually gear up a little bit.
Yeah?
Because Saturdays are my unplugged day.
Gotcha.
I think people have their own unplugged day, right? Sometimes people work and it's in the middle of the week. Sometimes it's at the weekend. For me, I am Jewish, and so our Sabbath is from Friday night to Saturday night. So during that time, I try to unplug as much as possible. I'll go to services in the morning, and the whole notion of a Sabbath is literally to unplug. So that means, I'm not checking emails. I'm not checking Facebook. I will use the phone, but that's really as far as I go. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to radio. As a podcaster, I have to say I don't listen to podcasts either. And it is so wonderful just to have that peace of mind, to have that peace and quiet, and just to really just unplug. And it's very funny because, and I've relayed this in other venues before, is that a number of years ago, Dr. Andrew Weil came out with a book called 7 Weeks to Optimal Health. And one of the suggestions that he has, Chad, is to have a news fast for a week. And he doesn't mean to be uninformed, but what he means is really just to have peace and quiet for a week and not have so much clutter up your brain, your mind, and really just to truly unplug. And that's really the purpose of a Sabbath. So it's meant to spend time with family, with friends, and just to have a contemplative, quiet time. So my Saturdays are usually spent really, I'll go to the synagogue in the morning. I always take a nap in the afternoon. That really recharges and revitalizes me. Sometimes I sneak in a nap during the week as well when I can, but I'm a big proponent of napping. But I'll take a nap. I'll go to the gym. Sometimes I'll go to a museum. I'll catch up with family or friends. And it's just a very quiet time. And it's also my time to read as well. And by the time sundown comes on Saturday evening, I almost don't want to check my emails. I don't want to check social media because I've had just such a relaxing, unplugged experience.
Oh man, Stephen, that is so awesome, and it resonates with my feelings, my thoughts exactly. We have a different schedule, but we have the same mind. We have the same goals and same priorities, which is, you know what? Sometimes it's just beneficial to unplug from all of this stuff. It's a requirement for me to unstress, to de-stress, to get away from work and from just all the, just so much stuff that's going on. We're so fast paced. So regardless of, as a work from home guy doing this podcast now full time, someday, honestly, my unplugged Sunday is on a Tuesday because, hey, we can,
Right, like today is a Sunday and you're working. But it's a fun kind of work. But even the fun kind of work you still need to take a break from. And I find that whether it's your Sunday or my Saturday or someone else's Thursday, whatever it is, it's almost like you're on an island. You're on an island vacation one day during the week.
Absolutely. Well, let's introduce you to the audience. So you and I know each other pretty well, but the audience doesn't. So born and raised in Chicago, Stephen Shalowitz conceived the idea for the One Way Ticket Show podcast. While producing and hosting a radio show in Singapore, he explores with his high-profile guests where they'd go if given a one-way ticket, no coming back. Destinations may be in the past, the present, future, real, imaginary, or even a state of mind. An exhibited photographer with a penchant for travel to rogue nations. Stephen's adventures have taken him from North Korea to Libya, Iran to Burundi, Syria to Burkina Faso. Stephen, I haven't even heard of these.
Burkina Faso. Are you trying to get that one out?
Yeah, I'm trying to get lots of stuff.
It's in West Africa.
Okay, and I'm going to put ... many other places across the universe.
Not quite the universe yet, Chad, but at least across the globe.
Maybe. We don't know.
One day.
So, Stephen, this
Thank
concept...
you for that. Thank you for that kind introduction.
You bet. This concept is just awesome. And
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's, man, we're talking about unplugging. And you're taking it to a whole nother level with these adventures that you're going on specifically, and then the adventures that you're talking to your guests about. It's not just unplugging like for a day and not checking social media. You're like, peace out, brother. I am gone to some remote part of the world that nobody else has heard of.
Well, what's so great about going to these places is that I was going to say, on the one hand, nobody can reach you, but on the other hand, everyone can reach you, because at the end of the day, technology is what it is today. And we do live actually in a very small world. So people can get a hold of you, but let's just say it's not always so easy. In fact, just a moment ago, you mentioned that I was in Burundi, I was in Burundi, but in Burkina Faso, which is in West Africa. And I remember I was with a group and we were having lunch, and at the next table were a bunch of Peace Corps volunteers. And they were in, when I mean the back of beyond, they were in the back of beyond. This was actually about 10 years ago. And I said, I asked them, how often do you speak with your families? They said, about every day or so, because we get cell phone coverage here. I mean, there's excellent cell phone coverage, even in the most remote of locations, I should say. So it's very easy actually to stay in touch. But most of the time when you're going to these places, you're really unplugged. You're absolutely right. And I think that in order to fully embrace the experience that you're in, you need to be unplugged. I know so many people, so many friends, that when they go on vacation, they're taking photos just so that I'm not saying they're going on vacation to post them on Facebook and that's their sole reason for going, but they're posting constantly, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Twitter, whether it's Instagram. And I think to myself, why can't you just enjoy the moment? And, you need to separate yourself. At least this is my philosophy. I do not post, or I haven't yet, while I'm on vacation, because I truly want to enjoy and embrace the moment. And I just can't see getting out of that zone, if you will. Because once you're looking at a screen, you're already taking yourself out of the experience.
Man, that's so true. And I have found myself guilty of doing just that on different occasions, on different things, both from the phone as well as from the DSLR, right? I have found myself living in a world of just looking through the lens of my camera instead of just being in awe and sitting for 10 minutes and just experiencing this amazing place that I'm traveling to. I'm trying to snap as many photographs as I can so that I can remember it when I get home, instead of just like, wow, like looking all around me and letting it soak in.
Sometimes you just need to be, and it's very funny you said about looking through the lens of a camera. When was it? 2 years ago, I was in Algeria. I spent about 2.5 weeks traveling through Algeria. And on my last day, I was in Algiers, which is the capital. And it's a beautiful, beautiful Art Deco city. It actually has a mashup of different architectural styles. And I decided to go outside without my camera. And I'll cut a very, very long story short, but I had the most extraordinary experiences without my camera. I was sitting at a cafe. There were a bunch of guys sitting at the next table. They asked me to take their photo. And we struck up a conversation, and they turned out to be actors. And they were on a break shooting a film that a couple blocks away. And their English was all right. It wasn't great, but it was all right. And they made themselves understood. And they asked if I wanted to go see the set. So I went over to this beautiful old building that they were shooting in. They brought me there. They showed me around the set. And then one of the actors was finished. And he said, you want to, grab a cup of coffee? I said, great. So we were walking down the street. We ran into other friends of his, and we ended up sitting there for a good couple of hours. Again, I didn't have my camera with me. A good couple of hours. And to this day, I'm still in touch with both that one actor that brought me around and then one of the other guys at the table who is quite a well-known journalist in Algeria. In fact, funny enough, he came to the US about a year and a half ago, and we got together here in New York City. So it's amazing what happens when you don't carry your camera around and the experiences that you can have.
And the fact that you were open to like making eye contact and seeing people and talking to them instead of just looking down at your phone and scrolling through your Twitter feed and checking up on emails and all the kind of stuff that sometimes we don't do, even when we're in amazing locations, but we're not unplugged.
Absolutely. And that's what we need to do more of, is divorce ourselves from the technology. And don't forget, as I said, and as you said, I'm a podcaster, and I rarely walk down the street with earbuds in my ear because I want to hear what's going on. Again, I'm here in New York City, and I like to hear the buzz of the street, what's going on. I like to hear the buskers singing. In fact, funny enough, there's one man that is on the corner of, let's see, if any of your listeners make it to New York, it's right opposite Lincoln Center, and there's a Starbucks, and his name is Michael, and he sings for money. Very sadly, he's been down on his luck. But I have to tell you, I can hear his voice about 2 blocks away. He really belts it out, and he has perfect pitch, and is the funniest, nicest guy. He's a great performer, and I just hope, like anything, that he gets discovered. But the point is, I would never get to know Michael or hear him sing and hear all of his wonderful tunes if I had earbuds in my ear. So again, we just need to unplug and just be.
Amazing. So, Stephen, how did you come up with this idea of the one-way ticket show? Tell us a little bit about the format of the show and the guests that you talk to, and where this inspiration came from.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned a moment ago, I was producing and hosting a radio show in Singapore. I had lived in Asia for a long time, China and then Singapore. I was working in advertising, but at the weekend I had a radio show in Singapore. And I used to do a lot of celebrity interviews. And it was one day, it literally just hit me. I wonder where all of these celebs would go if I gave them a one-way ticket, no coming back. And the same time that it hit me, I said, I'm going to hold on to the idea, because one day I will move to New York and one day I'll do a whole show around it. And that's what I did. It took me a while to get the show started for a variety of reasons. No fault of my own, but it took me a while to get all the pieces, because, as you know, putting a podcast together, especially if you're interviewing people, there are a lot of moving parts. And so I started the show. I've been doing it now for 4 years. I think I'm up to 107 episodes as we go to air, something like that. I'd have to check. I'm not too good with numbers. That's why I'm doing podcasting. I'm not in finance, by the way. So it's around 105, 107. I think it's 107. But I've interviewed a variety of people. Every single one is at the top of his or her game. I've interviewed everyone from famed talk show host Dick Cavett. Interviewed him twice, to Mo Rocca, who many of your listeners will know from Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me, CBS News, as well as the Cooking Channel. I've interviewed Richard Quest and Bill Weir from CNN. I've interviewed Jose Ramos Horta, who is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. He's the former president of East Timor in Asia. Very well-known photographers, artists, writers, thought leaders have all come on my show. And I have a tremendous laundry list of people, and I shouldn't say laundry list, but a tremendous list of people that are in the pipeline that I'll be interviewing as well, which I'm really, really excited about. So it's been just a variety of people. What we do is of course, I ask them their one-way ticket destinations, and from there we explore what is their one-way ticket destination, which can be in the past, present, future. It can be real, imaginary, or it can even be a state of mind. So we've had a variety of answers from, again, a wide swath of different people. I've had everything from, and I'll just throw a few out there, I've had everything from Paris today to Paris of the 1920s to Paris of the Belle Epoque era. But then I've also had, just keeping on a French theme, a very well-known landscape architect wanted a one-way ticket to the world of French gardens, while an embroidery artist wanted a one-way ticket to the world of French embroidery. I've had
That's
one-way,
amazing.
Isn't that great? I've had one-way tickets well into the future. I've had people say they want one-way tickets into outer space. I've had one very well-known sculptor wanted a one-way ticket to be the head stonemason at Machu Picchu when it was built in the 15th century. So we've literally had just about every kind of answer you can imagine. I just mentioned Dick Cavett, the famed talk show host and author, a moment ago, and he wanted a one-way ticket to have a conversation for eternity with Oscar Wilde, the famed writer, Oscar Wilde, at the Savoy Hotel dining room in London, or Wilde's favorite London pub. One singer wanted a one-way ticket to Gratitude, while his singing partner wanted a one-way ticket to an audience. So again, people stretch it. So we explore the reasons why, what they'd hope to get out of the experience, what they would take with them, what they would do there, people that they would want to meet there, who they'd like to take with them. We have a whole conversation going on around that. And then we also talk about people's lives and work and any projects that they're working on. So it's a very rich, robust conversation that we have in the show.
So at the beginning of that episode, you and I talked about our reason for why we feel like we want to get unplugged personally, right? You, Stephen, you want to get unplugged and you take your Sabbath every weekend, and I have my Sunday or my Tuesday or whatever day of the week works for me to spend time with my family. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned from your guests that have come onto your show to tell you about their one-way tickets?
That is a tough question to answer, Chad. And that's why you're getting paid the big bucks, right? The biggest lesson, I would have to say, I don't know if there was one lesson per se, but I think that people's one-way ticket answers definitely reveal something about their character. And they often reveal what they hope to achieve or hope to aspire to. And I think by asking the question, you can really tell a lot about somebody and their values and who they are, or what they hope to achieve in life. Because again, the answers have been so varied that there isn't one particular nugget. But as I said, it just shows a different facet of someone's character.
Right, the musicians who want an audience, the musicians who want to find gratitude.
Right. Or I had a fascinating interview with Prince Dmitri of Yugoslavia, who's a very well-known bespoke jeweler here in New York City, and I can call him a friend now as well. It's funny because many of my guests have become friends, which is always a nice byproduct.
That's so cool.
And he wanted a one-way ticket. His episode he was actually my 100th guest, but it's episode about 100. I think it was episode 102 or 103 because we had two repeat guests. But Prince Dmitri of Yugoslavia wanted a one-way ticket to heaven. And he defined both heaven here on earth and heaven in the afterlife. And that was just a brilliant way or approach, I should say, to answer the question. And he gave such great detail into why he chose heaven. I had two people, in fact, said that they wanted a one-way ticket home. And they defined what home was. So again, it shows a lot about someone's personality.
Wow. That's something amazing that I'm still discovering is talking to my guests. I learned so much about the world, about how people think, and really about myself. Is just like hearing you talk about this, I'm really, really thinking about what is my one-way ticket and what does that say about Chad, right? And to be honest, I'll go ahead and tell you guys. I'll tell the audience.
How about not sharing it yet? And okay. How about I will read it out on my next episode?
Okay, perfect. So let me think about it. Let me clarify it and get really, really clear on what my one-way ticket is, and then I'll send it to you, and then you can read it off on your podcast, and then I can send some of my audience to listen to that episode, and you can send some of your audience to come back to listen to this episode.
You got a deal. In fact, I will have yours on the episode with writer Gary Mancuso, who wrote a book called The Last Places on Earth. He took close to 6 years and traveled to, I go to far-flung places, but Gary also goes to really far-flung places. And he does it in a very, he travels in a very unique way, shall we say. And I'll read your answer off on his episode.
Man, oh, wow. That's a big honor. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. So have your listeners. So Chad's listeners, look out for Chad's one-way ticket answer on the Gary Mancuso episode of The One-Way Ticket Show.
Awesome. And once you have it published, then I will put that in the links on the show notes page for this episode.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, which will be at hellotechpros.com/119. This is episode 119, and we will have it linked up there. So come back to the website at hellotechpros.com/119, and we'll have that. But we're not done yet. We're not done yet. We have a lot more stuff to talk about. Stephen, in just a moment, I want to ask you about how you do so much travel, like all the tips and tricks that you've learned about moving across the globe and finding these amazing locations to meet actors in foreign countries and get invited to be on their sets. But first, we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsors. This episode of Hello Tech Pros is sponsored by Minio Cloud Storage. Minio is a cloud object storage server for developers and DevOps written in Go. The Go programming language is the emerging language of choice for modern cloud infrastructure projects, and it allows Minio to be highly concurrent and lightweight. Minio is Amazon S3 compatible, built with microstorage architecture in mind, but at its heart, Minio is simple, scalable, and supported by a passionate developer and user community. In episode 89 of Hello Tech Pros, I talked with A.B. Periasamy, one of the founders of Minio, about the importance of community support and recruiting software developers who are as passionate about their product's code as artists are of their art. Check out that episode at hellotechpros.com/89 and check out Minio Cloud Storage at minio.io. That's minio.io. Okay, we're back with Stephen Shalowitz. We've been talking to Stephen, who is an exhibited photographer. He's an international world traveler, perhaps even a galactic traveler, though he hasn't admitted to it yet. And the host of the podcast, The One Way Ticket Show, where he talks to so many different variety people, from princes to musicians to artists to world travelers, leaders, thought leaders, and so many different realms about where they would go if they got a one-way ticket to different destinations. And so Stephen shared with us so many different stories about these adventures that his guests would like to go on. Stephen, you have been literally into a lot of different adventures in a lot of different places in the world. Do you have any tips or tricks for the audience on traveling, right? If we want to pack up and just go to some of these exotic places, first of all, how do we decide on a location when there's so many to choose from? And then how do we figure out the best way to get there?
Well, I think the first thing is just go. In other words, is that if there's a place that you have any interest in, just make up your mind and go. I know it's easier said than done. Now come all the details, right?
Right.
But how to decide where to go, again, it depends on so many different factors. It depends on budget. It depends on how much time you have. It depends on one's interest level. It depends on what one likes to do. And how you want to travel. Do you want to travel high-end, luxurious, or do you want to travel low-end, backpacking yourself or with a group, with a family, friend? So all those things you have to decide. But once you do that, you just start doing your research. And once you start doing your research, it's really a snowball effect. And you just, and it all just really begins to come into place. For me, I'm very interested in non-Western cultures. And so that's why I tend to travel to places that are a little bit more off the beaten path, or even those that are Western societies. I like to do them during unusual times of year, kind of off season. And off season is always a good time to go to places because number one, the lines are shorter. Number two is that you get better deals. And number three is that you really see the place when it's most authentic. And I was a student in London during my junior year when I was in college. And my favorite time of year in London was January, February, because I felt London returned to the Londoners. Because London will always get tourists, but it's not like it is in June, July, and August. And so it was so much more quiet. And there was something very cozy about London in sort of the late afternoon when it's getting dark and it's a little bit snowy and it's cold. And it's just, there's something very authentic about the experience. And speaking of winters, I always wanted to go to Russia, to Moscow and St. Petersburg. And when did I go? I went 2 winters ago. And I decided to go in the winter because I wanted to see it at its most authentic. And I recommend to everybody, if you want to go to Russia, Moscow and St. Petersburg, you go in the winter. It was the most magical experience, not only in the snow, but I got into all the museums I wanted to. In some cases, some of the galleries were void of any people. There might have been one or two other people in large rooms with masterpieces hanging on the walls.
Wow.
So again, I totally recommend that. But for more off the grid places, oftentimes you either need a guide or you have to go with a group. Or what I like to do is, if you're going with a group, to go early and do some of it yourself, and or stay a couple days later and then do some of it yourself. And just the one place that comes to mind, and it's not so off the grid because many people go to Egypt, but is Egypt. I did want to go with a group because I wanted to have the archaeologists to explain everything, and it's just a lot easier to make arrangements and so on. In any event, I did arrange to go a couple days early, and I went to Alexandria myself. I took the train up. I explored Alexandria. I took the train back to Cairo and then met the group. And then after the group left, I had 2 days extra in Cairo just to explore it myself, to go back to places that I wanted to go back to. And I find that when you do that, when you have an experience beyond a group, you really get to understand a place so much better. It's like what I was just explaining when about my experience in Algeria, just sitting at a cafe and meeting people and then striking up a friendship with them. You mentioned earlier on at the top of the show that I visited North Korea. That also I did with a group, because that you have to do with a group. But I arranged it so that I could spend a couple days on my own. Of course, they give you guides, because you can't just wander off in North Korea yourself, nor would you want to. But they gave me guides, and I had 2 guides, and they were with me 24/7, except for when I was sleeping. But again, it was a great experience to be as much out on my own as I could be, but without a group. So that's a huge piece of advice that I have for everybody. If you go with a group because of logistics, because it's just easier, or you go with a guide somewhere and you have a guided tour, just you and the guide, just try and spend time alone where you can, so that you can absorb the place yourself.
I love that hybrid blended approach that you
Yes.
got there, Stephen, where you're not doing one or the other, you're doing both, right? And so I really think that I love that approach, and I'm going to definitely take your advice and start doing that more often.
Right. And by the way, I just want to add, there's so many places in the world that you can go alone. And like, I went to Russia alone, and I don't speak Russian, but if you learn enough of the alphabet, you can get by. I mean, I landed in Moscow, and I had my hotel reservation ahead of time, and I called up and I asked, how do you get from the airport to the hotel? They told me how to take the high-speed train, which train station to get off at. And then I learned enough Russian myself. In other words, because it's a different alphabet, it's a Cyrillic alphabet. I learned enough that I could read it and make it out. And so I was able to go where I needed to go. And I felt like I was almost on The Amazing Race, Chad, because I remember I was going up the escalator. They have very long escalators, because they were the subway was built for is underground for bomb shelters, right?
Okay.
But their subways are gorgeous there, and so I was going up the escalator, and I remember opening the door to the subway, and right in front of me was the hotel. And that's when I felt like I was on The Amazing Race.
You're like, I won.
I won. I did it. So that was quite because that's part of the fun of travel, isn't it? I mean, part of the fun is getting lost. You don't want to get lost in a bad neighborhood and have something awful happen to you. But part of the fun is the adventure of it all. But it's the hybrid thing. But again, any listener that wants to go somewhere, it's not undoable to do it yourself. You can definitely do it yourself.
Man, that's so inspiring, because I know there's a lot of people out there who have all these blocks, these mental blocks or physical blocks, where they're like, I can't do it because of the money. I can't do it because of I don't know how to speak the language. I don't know any guides. It's just too difficult. It's too risky. There's so much terrorism and bad people in the world. I don't want to get stuck in the wrong neighborhood and miss the plane back or miss the boat back or whatever. So, do you have any final words of wisdom for those folks and anything that you want to share with the audience to kind of sum up this whole conversation and get people inspired to to take on these journeys or adventures?
Yeah, well, I would just say, just if you're interested in a place, just go. Just, there are so many different ways of travel that you can stay at an Airbnb or you can stay at a 5-star hotel. So investigate the Airbnb if you don't want to stay at the 5-star hotel. And the host of the Airbnb is most likely a great person and will give you great guidance on the place that you're staying in. And then also utilize the hotel as well if you just show up at a place, because they know the drill and they'll be able to set you on the right course. But make sure that you have a valid passport. And of course, you also have to make sure, by the way, that your passport is valid for a minimum of 6 months, because if you need a visa, some countries will not issue a visa unless your passport is valid for more than 6 months, and some countries won't let you in if your passport is not valid for more than 6 months. So that you have to check. But apart from that, just arrange it, go, everything will get sorted out, and just be careful of the surroundings, and obviously be careful, but just go and have a great time, because most people out there in this world are actually really good.
Yeah, I love what you said about being aware of your surroundings. And if you're unplugged from technology, if you're unplugged from the maps and you got your head up, you're swiveling around, you're aware of what's going on left and right, behind, in front of you, you're going to be not so much a target, right? You're not going to be a target because you know what's going on and you can scoot and get out of the area if you need to.
Absolutely. And the most important thing is, to go back to what you were saying, is just make sure that you get unplugged. I know people like to post things on social media, etc. But again, that can wait 2 weeks. The experience can't. You spend so much time, money, and effort getting to a place, that just enjoy the place and embrace the place because that's why you're there. You're not there to show people your pictures. You're there to have an experience and to come back changed. I think that's the important thing of travel. Travel should really change you, and it should enrich you as a person. It should make you understand the world around us, so that when you do come back and you hear about a place in the news, you have a different perspective than when you started.
Awesome stuff, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much, Chad.
Yeah, before we go, do you want to share some links or some ways on social media where people can get a hold of you?
Speaking of social media, right?
Right.
So I'm going to say this: don't check this out. Don't check out my social media while you're on vacation. But the moment you come back from vacation, please check it out. Well, of course, my website is theonewayticketshow.com. It's theonewayticketshow.com. And your listeners can also check out the show on iTunes and Stitcher, The One Way Ticket Show. They can reach me at Stephen at theonewayticketshow.com. It's Stephen at theonewayticketshow.com. And they can look for me, Stephen Shalowitz, on social media, and also the One Way Ticket Show on Facebook as well. And I would love, can I invite your listeners to write in with their one-way ticket destinations, because I'd love to read them on air. So if your listeners want to share, if you, Chad's listeners, want to share your one-way ticket destinations, please write to me at Stephen at theonewayticketshow.com. And I'll read your destination on air. Let me know why you want to go to your destination, by the way. And by the way, if they have any travel questions, I'm more than amenable to answer any travel questions offline too.
Yeah, and please copy me, because I want to hear too. So Chad at hellotechpros.com, or you can join the conversation any day or night of the week by visiting hellotechpros.com/Slack, and you can join my Slack channel, which is like an online chat channel that's available that me and some of my guests and some of my listeners have lots of conversations about, and I'd like to jam with you on this particular topic. Where would you go? Because I'm always looking for that next destination where I can go get unplugged. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me on Hello Tech Pros today. I really value your stories and your humor and your wisdom, and appreciate you taking time out of your busy, very productive Sunday to spend spend time with us.
Chad, this has been so much fun, and I really appreciate it. And I hope this wasn't too much work for you on your Sunday, your day off.
Well, you know what? I'll give you a little secret. It's not really Sunday. We're just publishing it today on Sunday. So my Sunday being unplugged, it's our little secret. We won't tell the audience.
We won't tell them.
Yeah, we'll schedule this to publish on Sunday, and I will be busy taking a nap. You've been listening to Stephen Shalowitz, and I'm Chad Bostic. And until next time, take care. The show notes page for this episode can be found at hellotechpros.com/119. Do you use Slack for team communication? Join the Hello Tech Pros Slack channel at hellotechpros.com/Slack. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review, subscribe to this channel, and check back tomorrow. This has been Sunday Being Unplugged, but tomorrow my featured guest and I will get fired up and ready to face the week with Motivation Monday. On Tuesday, we'll be discussing productivity, Wednesday, leadership, Thursday, technology, Friday, people and communication, Saturday, entrepreneurship, and back again on Sunday to get unplugged. And I'll talk to you tomorrow.